Financial Argument. Follow us on YouTube.
That banks are built for the physical distribution of paper in a localized network focused upon buildings and humans, and very rapidly we're moving into a new structure of the digital distribution of data through a globalized network focused on software and servers, and banks need to radically change their business model.
I'm Kenneth Amaduri, and I'm joined today with Chris Skinner, and he's known as an independent commentator on the financial markets and fintech through his blog, the Chris Skinner blog, and it's at Financer.com, and we're going to have the link in the description area. He's an author of the best-selling book, Digital Bank, and he's got a new book out, the sequel, Value Web. I have a copy of this in my hands, and for sure you'll be able to get that if you visit his website. And we'll have, again, that in the description area. So we're going to pick Chris's brain today, talk about the financial markets a little bit and what he sees going forward with internet technology. So Chris, thanks for coming on the show with me today.
Hey, great to be here, Kenneth, and thanks for inviting me.
Let's start off with this. You've covered the banking industry to a large degree in your books and writing. And with the world getting relevered since the 2008 crisis, do you see another banking crisis on the horizon potentially?
Maybe a bank in crisis due to the fact that they are not incorporating technology efficiently or effectively. And in the last decade, we've seen a huge range of new competitors rising with billions of dollars of investment, over $100 billion just in the last 4 years alone, in new fintech companies, financial technology companies, to really squeeze margins of banks and to nibble away at where the banks are inefficient. And to a large extent, what we have right now is, as you all know, the big banks in the USA open to questions around whether we should bring back Glass-Steagall and separate investment from retail operations, whilst around them are all these hornets buzzing to take their business.
So let's get your thoughts on that. What is your opinion on the Glass-Steagall, and what do you see as the impact on the banking industry, and I guess more so the average person, the economy?
Yeah, I mean, if you look back at why the Glass-Steagall Act was repealed, it was really under Sandy Weill's drive during the Clinton administration to create a integrated Citigroup between insurance, brokerage and banking. But it led to a lot of unintended consequences when Gramm-Leach-Bliley came in and Glass-Steagall was repealed. It really created that casino capitalism that led to the financial crisis, along with a lot of financial instruments and innovations that were untested, unproven, and proved calamitous. What we have now is Dodd-Frank having created a more stable structure, but still the exposures of the markets due to the integration of investment banking and retail banking. So I can see some ways why it would make sense to bring back Glass-Steagall, but it would probably not work because the destabilizing impact on JP Morgan, Wells, Bank of America, Citigroup, it would be phenomenal. It would probably potentially bring down a lot of the large American stability in the financial system that's been built in the last 8 years. So it's a difficult nut to crack. I think what might happen is that the US will copy what the UK's done, which is you've got living wills to wind down a bank if it does start to fail, but equally we've ring-fenced the banks so that the investment side of a bank can still operate within the holding company, but internally it's a separate structure from the retail and commercial bank operations.
Sure. Well, Chris, I'd like to get your thoughts on the markets in general. It just seems, it's concerning looking at where we're at. We're at record high valuations in stocks now, and I think a lot of us are confused why precious metals aren't doing as well as maybe we all thought they would be doing. But we do have another type of commodity, a new whole paradigm type of commodity, Bitcoin, digital currencies, going through the roof at the moment. And while precious metals have not been doing the same thing in this what I'm going to call an unstable environment. So just what are your thoughts on, where we're at in the market, and, is the capital flow, do you see it going into these safe haven assets such as gold and silver and Bitcoin?
Well, you always know that you're going through a boom-bust cycle. I mean, the markets are always going through a boom-bust cycle, dating back to, prehistory almost. When you look at The Extraordinary Madness of Crowds, a book that traces the Dutch tulip boom-bust cycle and the others around the 18th century that were taking place. It's the extraordinary madness of crowds. We all follow each other into investments, and then we all panic and leave those investments when they start to go bad. And to be honest, the Bitcoin volatility is immense because it's a very small marketplace. So although the price right now is approaching $1,500, maybe $2,000 by the end of this month, who knows? It's not necessarily a commodity that you want to hold for very long. I mean, I invested recently in Ethereum coins, the Ether, and literally within 10 days of the investment, they'd increased in value by 50%. That does not make sense long term. And what you really need to do is say, what are you looking for? If it's to trade on volatility, then yeah, I'd recommend you get into Bitcoin and Ether and Zcash and the other digital currencies that are emerging out there, but just don't hold them because they're not going to keep their value long term. If you want to be secure and more confident, then gold and such similar commodities are always good for the long term. And you do have gold-backed digital currencies, so you can make a hedge there and just say, look, I'll go with gold, but in a digital form.
Well, let's talk about cryptocurrencies and how are they affecting the banking industry, in your opinion?
Well, there's a fundamental challenge, and it's something that I delved quite deeply into in ValueWeb, which is that we need an internet of value to support the Internet of Things, and things on the internet will not be able to trade with each other if it's through the traditional banking network, because the traditional banking network is built for physical operations that are slow and expensive, like check processing. They're not designed for streaming and downloading movies or for your fridge ordering groceries. So the Internet of Value is being built right now by these financial technology firms, and a core part of what they're building is based around digital currency exchange and aggregated wallets like the Apple Pay wallet or Samsung Pay or Android Pay, whichever one you use. And the banks are kind of challenged in this context in the retail world because they just have no design to support those operations. I mean, I was blogging the other day about something I picked up in Reuters, which is that 43% of the main systems running the main banking operations of US banks are written in COBOL. And the problem that the banks have is that the programmers are dying and they don't maintain the systems anymore. That's not really a great design for the Internet of Things, is it?
Wow. Well, what do you see as the value web then? What is the web going to do to our future as it continues to change our lives? I mean, there's people that are living today that are 20 years old, under 20, that have no idea what the world is like without the internet. And even within their lifetime, it's just changed so dramatically. Now people are walking around with the internet on their phones, and it's just such an integral part of who we are today. And if you even look at information, the cost of information has collapsed because of the internet. And I mean, it brings up a whole nother topic. Traditional education is through the roof at record levels, which is a complete free market discrepancy. But, what is your thoughts in general on what's going on with the internet and how it's going to impact the world?
Yeah, I mean, I'm working on a new book. The theme is Digital Human, kind of takes the digital bank concept and widens it to where are we going over the next 10 or 15 years. And to a large extent, the conclusion is, particularly in the financial context, that we're moving to a marketplace of apps, APIs, and analytics, where banks will become curators of these services and build them into the best experience that you can possibly get in terms of financial advice, financial support, predictive and proactive services, and knowledge analytics of your digital footprint to make sure that you're spending and saving smarter. And I liken it to how we've seen the car manufacturing industry change from one where Ford and General Motors used to build all of the components of the car, assemble them, service them, distribute them, to now they just really are sourcing components globally from specialist manufacturers into different form factors. And that's why the vehicle ranges of the Fords and the General Motors are much bigger and wider than they ever were, including very soon self-driving cars. And that's what banks are going to become. That rather than being these integrated monolith structures, they'll be assembling and curating a whole range of apps, APIs and analytics for their customers. Now, from your specific question around where does it take us as individuals is into what I call the semantic web with a semantic bank. So the semantic web is a term that said that the internet kind of becomes intelligent. It uses artificial intelligence at a much higher level than we've ever seen before to do deep data analytics and really surround our lives with information and support and advice and service. And financially, that's what the semantic bank will be doing. But the internet generally is going to become completely immersive. It's in a similar way to we saw in the film Her with Joaquin Phoenix and Scarlett Johansson, where the tagline of the film is, it's not an operating system, it's a consciousness. That's pretty much almost where we are today.
Wow. Yeah, it really is amazing what's happening. And I mean, I've heard stories now, and we're already seeing it to a certain degree, where the internet's just going to be in every single aspect of our life. It's going to be in our shoe and predicting when we need new shoes, and in our refrigerators, predicting when we need milk and sending us coupons, and just knowing where we are and knowing what we need, and really all in an effort to track our patterns and to help companies market and, you know, maybe more about, you know, the excuse of protecting the people, all these different things, surveillance. It is crazy and exciting and scary all at the same time. I'm a little bit sad in certain ways to not experience some of the technologies that we're going to have in, 150 years from now. I'll kick that can way out there a little bit. But
you never know, the life sciences, you might be around still.
You know, hey, that's a good point, right? I mean, they're talking about being able to remove our brains and stick it in some sort of other, you know, robot. Although they haven't figured out a way to sever the nervous system without and being able to revive it. So hopefully they do figure out a way to do that down the line here, and I guess we'll have a population problem to a larger degree. So hey,
We're
Chris,
living on Mars.
We'll be living on Mars, yeah. Hey, Chris, you know, let's get your closing thoughts here. You know, what was the point of the book? You know, value it. What are you trying to drive home and share with everyone? And, you know, I recommend everyone to go pick it up. We're going to have the links in the description area here. But just give us the understanding of what you were wanting to share and the advice that you're giving people.
Yeah, I mean, the digital bank book that came out before ValueWeb was all about the fact that banks are built for the physical distribution of paper in a localized network focused upon buildings and humans, and very rapidly we're moving into a new structure of the digital distribution of data through a globalized network focused on software and servers, and banks need to radically change their business model. ValueWeb builds on that and says that, you know, if Digital Bank told you what the business model you need to move to is, ValueWeb is telling the banks why they need to do this quickly, because there's a whole new structure appearing of specialist companies focused on niche areas like Stripe with their API that are building a new internet-based financial system, which if they're left to do that without some collaboration and focus upon by the financial community, they might build it without any involvement of the existing financial system, which would be quite a radical change. It's not going to happen, if I'm honest, because most of the banks I deal with have woken up to this. And at the end of it, it's really, the bottom line for me is the challenge we have is that banks, like fintech companies, these financial technology startups, banks are also fintechs. You know, they run on technology, but they're run by bankers in terms of the people at the leadership team of those institutions. You know, only 4% of bank leadership teams have anybody who's got a professional technology background, which means that the majority of the leadership teams in banks have no vision about how to use or implement these new technology structures. And they should be far more balanced to have the right leadership with the right passion and the right culture to effect technological change. And that's what ValueWeb is really pushing on, saying you've got to get technology leadership into the financial institutions as well as financial leadership.
Well, I'm looking at Bitcoin right now just before we end the interview. Bitstamp has it at $1,580 at the moment, and it's not stopping. I think we're definitely in a little bit of a bubble phase here. Who knows how long this is going to go, but it sure has piqued my interest over the last while, actually. Chris,
Cashing on the volatility.
Cashing on the volatility. Well, hey, I'm hoping it goes to 50,000 one of these days. I didn't put that much in it that I'm so worried about losing. But you know what? You never know. We could see some major moves into it if we see some disruptions in our financial system. And it's only got a $20 billion market cap. It's higher now with the price moving up, but the smallest amount of money going into it, which we're seeing in large scale adoption of it, can continue to send it higher. Nobody thought it would go as high as it did. So I'm optimistic of Bitcoin here. Would you like to respond?
Let's have them valued at $1 million by the end of the next decade. And a lot of people are saying they'll be valued at even more than that.
Hey, you know what? I would be very happy if that came true, but even if it didn't, it doesn't matter to me. I like that it's a competition to this banking industry. It creates some competition for fiat currencies, and it's the free market providing solutions for things that in the 21st century we shouldn't have to deal with anymore. So,
and the great news is, just finishing off, is that with Bitcoin, there's a company called Abra, who's allowing people to send money as remittances through the network for almost no cost, completely changing the Western Union model, because you can transfer within minutes thousands of dollars to the Philippines, for example, and the cost is 0.1%. It's radically changing the world.
Oh yeah, no, and I love it. I love it. All right, Chris. Well, hey, I appreciate your time on the show, and I appreciate your expertise.